Welcome to the Hawley Baptist Church podcast, connecting you to a community in which everyone is welcome, lives are changing, and Jesus is King. Thanks for joining us today. You can subscribe to keep up to date with us. Did you know you can also join our service each Sunday via a live online meeting? Please get in touch to find out more about that. But for now, we pray you enjoy what God has in store for you in this episode and that it helps change your life for the better. In Jesus' name, welcome.
Good morning and welcome to HBC Online, or good evening, or good day.
Or whichever time it is.
It's morning for us, but who knows where you're at and when you're watching this. 2 a.m. in the morning.
That'd be a good time.
I'm Jen.
I'm Anna.
And you're very welcome whenever you are joining us. Anna and I are a bit discombobulated this morning. Anna has just come straight to me from a night shift, so she might start yawning. It's no offence to you.
It's not you guys.
It's not you guys. It's all her. We are continuing our series of black and white thinking today, and it is how black and white thinking can make you feel like you're certain.
Yeah.
We have had a couple of other weeks, so if you do need to catch up, please do go and watch them back. This is it's quite a challenging series, but it is interesting, and it is like it gets you thinking about how you form your thoughts around the world. So we've had some bits about peace and unity and about sort of disharmony and certain ways of thinking causing that. I think the first one was more of sort of a recap and a kind of introduction of what is going to come in this series, and we've got the last of the series in the next podcast. So Anna's not prepared for this, but I'm going to put her on the spot. It's quite rude, really, considering she's just a night shift.
What are you going to ask? Oh, gosh.
What am I going to ask? So I'm going to ask, is there a time where you have thought you're absolutely 110% right and then you weren't? And how far do you take it down the sort of like, I'm right, even though there's a little niggle that you're like, oh, I might not quite be right. And how do you sort of fess up, as it were?
That's probably all the time, to be honest. Quite a lot in work. I'll be like, I'm certain this is the right way to do it, or this is the decision, this is what we need to do. And I will be quite adamant and stick to it for quite a while, probably. And then I'll start going, actually, I will hear someone go, actually, yeah, maybe I'm not quite right. But it will take quite a while, probably, for me to
not stand your ground.
Not stand, yeah.
And I do think it is quite a personality thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
very stubborn.
She said it, I didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think I'm probably similar. If you're feeling like you're 110% certain, you're not gonna want to.
You don't want to kind of go, actually, oh no, I'm not right. And it depends who you're with, I guess. Who's the person that you're realizing that you're not 100%? Because it could be someone you really respect, and then you'll be like, okay, I'll back down a bit quicker. If it's someone else that you're not
relationship with,
someone that's not really been there very long. You're like, well, what do you know that I know? Yeah,
I know. I used to love. It was a tension of like loving or not quite loving having a student.
Oh,
so when you're mentoring
that's
somebody,
me at the moment. Most annoying.
When you're mentoring somebody, the good thing about that is it keeps you fresh. They're coming in with the latest possible ways of working, practice, and evidence-based stuff that you're like all just resting on your experience now. and then they come in and question, because that's, as we're learning, we question so much more. And if you're the teacher or the mentor, it's really hard because you're constantly rethinking, oh, I thought I knew how to do this, or I thought I was. And sometimes you do have to be quite certain because they're questioning, but you have got the right answer.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing when.
Yeah.
And then the big thing of like, actually, hands up.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
Coming across to the student that actually you're not 100% sure.
Yeah, well,
that's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so
maybe we should hear what Martin says.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, that might not be what Martin's talking about at all, but I thought it was good to put Anna on the spot, to be fair. We'll catch up with you after the talk.
The notice I was supposed to give. Next week, we've got a baptismal service. Now, at the moment, it's just one person being baptised. There's a possibility we might have more, but that's going to be happening in the first service, and then we're going to video it and show it in the second. So if you come to second, you won't miss out on seeing that, but that's happening next Sunday. Am I okay using this? I'm good. Right. Excellent. Brilliant. So we are carrying on our sermon series in January, Black and White Thinking, how Jesus leads us through a polarized world, because we do live in a world that is very much polarized between different groups and different ways of thinking and different realities for people that just seem to hit bang into others. We see it on our news all the time, don't we? And we also see it in our town as well. And really, over this month, rather than 4 individual sermons, it's really one sermon in 4 parts. So if you've missed out on on the previous 2 episodes, you can catch up on our YouTube channel. You can catch up on our podcast, just search Hawley Baptist Church. But just a quick recap over the last couple of weeks. Black and white thinking is where we break down the world around us into basic categories: good versus bad, right versus wrong, safe versus danger. And in the first sermon, we looked at why our brains work like that. It's a natural tendency for all of us, in order to save energy, to just break everything down into something that's easily understandable. The problem being is that people are not easily categorized. We're all complex individuals, and yet our brains try and reduce that complexity down to simplicity. And we looked at words of Jesus where he told us to not judge, to not try and fit people into these preconceived ideas of how the world works. Last week, we looked at how those black and white thinking that's very individualistic actually moves from me and you to us and them. We form different groups. We find people who are like us, who think the same as us, who believe the same things as us, and we form groups. You could argue that church is a group like that. But we looked at how the church was supposed to model a different way of being human together. Actually, the church is called to be a role model to society, and that Jesus has broken down the walls of hostility, celebrating difference. Difference is not a problem, but when we use those differences to build walls to separate us, well, that is a problem. And we're called, as followers of Jesus, to live out a different way of being humanity together. And this week, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into black and white thinking, how it builds walls, and what living counter to that actually looks like. If you want to grab a Bible, there's some in the little cupboard over there, but the words will appear on the screen, and you might want to get your Bibles out, digital or otherwise. But we're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians and chapter 13. But we'll come to that later. Any of you who are parents will recognize the difficulty it can be getting our children to settle. And there are different schools of thoughts about how we do this. So some people say, as soon as your baby cries, you've got to pick them up and comfort them and be there with them. Others will say, no, just leave them where they are, walk away, and they will self-settle. With my first, it was very much every time Ellie made a sound, we were straight up the stairs to get her. We found it was always when we were watching something really interesting on TV, and when we paused it, she was quiet. When we pressed play, she made a right racket. It was really frustrating. By the time we cut to child number 3, we just didn't care. They could do whatever they want up there. It doesn't matter. But it's interesting, when psychologists did studies into how does this black and white thinking develop in humans, because all of us do this. All of us do this. What they discovered, and it's a theory, it's not fact, but they've worked it out through trials, I don't know how, is that babies, when they're first born, they're born into this, from a comfort of the womb to suddenly they've got all this complexity around them, different sights, different sounds, light, colours, different people, and they've got to try and make sense of the world around them. So what they reckon is that babies don't have one mother, they have 2. They have the good mother who comforts them and feeds them and strokes their back and is there for them. And then they've got the bad mother who puts them down their cot and walks away. They've not literally got 2 mothers, but that's how the baby interprets this around them. And the good mother's a hero, the bad mother is a villain. And I reckon that after a few months, they suddenly come to the reality, these 2 different mothers, they're the same person. Actually, this hero or this villain is a little bit more complex than they were first thought. That's where black and white thinking, they think, comes from. And the older we get, the more we realize that the world is not black and white. There is complexities, there are grays, a whole range of them in between. But psychologists think that some people get stuck in that kind of infancy way of thinking, black and white. And actually, all of us, when we're faced with struggles in life, when things get difficult, when maybe life is not as it should be, we can very easily naturally fall back on that black and white thinking. But psychologists think there are three particular personality types that are distinguished by black and white thinking. And this is what. Hey, let's go back. There we go. These are the three different personality types. I'll explain what they are and how it all fits together. There's narcissism, there's victimhood, and there's low self-esteem. So let's look at each of those in part. And actually, what's interesting, that all three of these have the same core problem at the center of them. That on the surface, they look very different and they manifest in different ways. But actually, when you dig deeper, they've all got the same problem at the heart of them. So for a narcissist is, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm special, others just don't understand me. If you disagree with me, well, you're attacking me. So we see all critics as enemies. And if I succeed, it's a total success. But if I fail, it's complete, total humiliation. Victim mentality, victimhood, is that the world's full of people. Some are good and some are bad, but I'm always the one that gets hurt. People are always out against me. Nothing ever works right for me. This always happens. Have you heard people say that? Maybe you've said it yourself. This always happens. Then there's low self-esteem. You know, I messed up, therefore I'm worthless. I failed once, therefore I'm a failure. And if someone criticizes me, then I'm a terrible person. And actually, everyone's better than me. I've got nothing to offer. Like I said, three very different personality types, but at the root of it is this fragility of ego. How good we feel about ourselves. And actually, what we find is that all three of those personality types use certainty to build their lives upon, to fix onto, to maybe help prop them up. What I mean by certainty, and I'll explain in a minute how it plays itself out in those three different personality types, is certainty about how the world works, how we view it, how we interpret it. Politics, science, religion, race, gender, sexuality, and all these things we can see played out in our church as well, where different people take different stances on different things. And if we particularly got those three extreme personalities, then we can end up holding on to that certainty as a crutch to help us get through life. So how do they do that? Well, for a narcissist, certainty acts as self-protection and control. It's used to inflate self, and their identity is built on feeling superior, informed, and enlightened. And therefore they feel threatened by disagreement and criticism. For a victim, certainty acts as self-vindication. I am right because I have been wronged. And identity is built on moral innocence. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm morally right in this argument. And therefore disagreement is felt as an attack. For low self-esteem, it's slightly different. Certainty is found within a group. So identity is borrowed from a group. Safety comes from belonging to the right side. And therefore questioning and disagreement of the group feels, they say, existentially threatening. In other words, it threatens not just what the group believes, it threatens who I am as a person. If you question what the group believe, that actually really hurts me, and it makes me struggle with who I identify to be. And if all three of these personality types are left unchecked, they will sow division, they will build walls of hostility, and they will scupper any chance of unity. Now, these are extremes. And maybe that we haven't got any of those three personality types in this building. But because of our human tendency to think black and white, we will fit in that triangle somewhere. And we will lean to one of those three extremes. It may be narcissism, it may be victimhood, it may be low self-esteem. And you might want to just reflect on, when push comes to shove, when I'm struggling in life, which corner do I naturally go into? I remember in my last church, they do a crazy thing in the Baptist church where they train you for 3 years and then they go and give you a church all of your own. I was 32 years old. I got given a church to lead all by myself. And I felt pretty good. I'd had my training at Bible college. I knew a thing or two. I had no experience, but I knew a thing or two. And there was some difficult combative characters, let's just say, in my last church. Think people you start to butt heads with. And I decided one particular Sunday afternoon that I would like to share some of my superior knowledge that I picked up in Bible college with the rest of the church. We were looking at Genesis. I probably was a bad thing to look at, but about the creation, the first couple of chapters of Genesis. And I thought I would share with these people, my superior knowledge that I've been taught at college, something maybe they hadn't heard of before, because I know more than they do. And we've got them all in. And there was one guy I knew believed completely the opposite to me. He turned up, he sat on the front row and had a pile that big of books. And he put it next to him. And straight away, I'm like, oh no. I started, as soon as I got to the good bit, I thought it would be impressive. He jumped straight in and started challenging what I thought. Now, how should we respond in that situation? Maybe stop, maybe listen, maybe get him up front to present his side of the story, how he thinks about things. How did I respond? I shouted at him and told him to leave. The problem was not the fact we had a different opinion about a biblical text. The problem was my ego was fragile. I was a young man at my first church, unsure of my position and doing it all. And here comes a guy. I'm grabbing onto a certainty of a particular view of the Bible. And when he questions that, I crumble and I attack. That's how this works itself out. This is how certainty and holding on to something that maybe isn't as certain as we think can cause real difficulty in our relationship with others. So what's the answer? Well, last week I spoke about the fact that in the early church, as it kind of grew and more people followed Jesus, was a very exciting place. It was lots of growth. But what you ended up with two different groups of people being put into one church, and that caused huge amounts of problems. There was Jews and there was non-Jews or Gentiles or pagans, whatever you want to call them. But they lived very different lives. They believed very different things. And yet here they were united under the banner of Christ. And we looked at the church in Ephesus last week. This week, we're going to look at the church in Corinth. There's a couple of letters written to the church in Corinth. And Corinth, Paul, a guy called Paul, who was an early church leader, he was an evangelist, he was a theologian, he was an amazing guy, and much of our New Testament is written by Paul. He went around all over his part of the world, spending time in town, talking to key people and planting churches. And he spent a year and a half in Corinth. Corinth, like Ephesus, was a big bustling port city. Spent a year and a half there. He chatted to people. People believed in Jesus and the church was formed. And then Paul, doing what he does, he then moved on to the next town or city to start another church. But he started to hear some troubling rumors about some divisions within that church. And he writes his first letter to the church in Corinth to address those problems. Now, we know that whatever he wrote worked, because in his second letter, things are much more positive. The church has really moved on. But we're going to just look at some of the problems and some of the divisions that were in this church, because it wasn't just between Jew and Gentile, although there was some of that. And for example, there was a big argument over whether we should eat food that's been sacrificed to idols in the temple. And there's a very difference between those who weren't Jews and those who were Jews. But there were other divisions. For example, Paul had done his teaching, had moved away, and some other teachers had come along. It doesn't say there's anything wrong with those teachers, but they wanted to teach people about Jesus and how to follow him. But what we found is that in that church, they started to connect more with maybe his teaching than his teaching. I follow Paul. Well, I follow Apollos. No, I follow Peter. And they started to divide themselves up depending on who they were following. And they started to attack and be mean about and speaking poorly of those that were in the other groups. That's one particular division. There was also social economic splits. So often there was a church, they would gather for a nice meal, have lots of all the best food laid out. But what would happen was the rich people who didn't have much to do, they'd arrive early. And they'd start eating and drinking and having a great old party. And by the time maybe some slaves turned up who weren't allowed to leave early and been working hard all day, by the time they turned up, there was nothing left. And Paul actually says, look, this is causing a huge problem in your church. And then there was the way they did Sunday worship together. There was a big emphasis on spiritual experiences, speaking words of knowledge and prophecy within the church. But what you're seeing there is a real sort of narcissism. We had certain people saying, I am more spiritual than you. You need to listen to what I've got to say. I'm going to take this time to share what God has said to me, vying for a voice and vying for importance. You're also seeing victimhood in this church. You had a number of believers, rather than sorting out their problems within the church, they took it to the courts. I'm right. You've wronged me. I'm the victim here. And they start fighting stuff out in courts. And then there's signs of low self-esteem. Those groups I've already talked about, actually they find their certainty within the groups they're linking to because they're struggling to find that certainty within themselves. And Paul's answer to all these problems, it may sound a bit wishy-washy, but we're going to look at it. He says the answer to all these problems, and it works, is love. So we're going to read a passage that's often read at weddings because it's about love, but actually it's a far more, this is not about some lovey-dovey, we've just got engaged, now we're getting married love. This is about something completely different. So let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Oh dear, sorry, I think that was me. Yeah. Well, I'm going to put that down because we're competing with each other. Here we are. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If you've ever given kids a drum kit, you know what that sounds like. If I have the gift of prophecy and I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. And if I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. In other words, you might be the most gifted person in your church. You might have a PhD in theology, the best preacher, an amazing worship leader, a talented organizer. You might work regularly with the food bank. But Paul's saying, what are your motives? But most importantly, how do you treat people? Because you can have all of that, but it is nothing if you don't show love. So what does love look like? Well, Paul goes on to describe it. So we're going to read this slowly, just let it sink in and just kind of picture what this love is. So love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Now, when I was a teacher, I was a design technology teacher, and if the kids were making a project, I would make it as well. And I would show them an example of, this is the best I can do. This is something for you to aspire to. But every now and then, rather than make the best I could do, I would make as many mistakes as I possibly can. It would be broken, it would be cut out badly, it would be covered in glue, and say, don't be like this. So I'm going to read you a different version of this, and it's going to be is going to be what it looks like when someone isn't showing love. So let's just listen to this again. Without love, a person is impatient and unkind. They envy what others have and boast about what they know. They are proud or deeply insecure, and they protect themselves at all costs. They dishonor others to preserve themselves. They delight in being right rather than being reconciled. They do not bear with others. They struggle to trust, and they hope cautiously, if at all. And they endure only as long as it feels safe. See, when love is absent, that's when we lean on certainty, and slowly our soul shrinks. But why is it that Paul thinks love is so important? Well, he goes on to explain why. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in parts. And when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put ways of childhood behind me. For now, I see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. So what is Paul saying here? Firstly, what you are proud of now will not last. What you are certain about now is only partial. And love is the only foundation that survives. All those things you are placing so much importance on, whether it's your politics or your views on certain theological issues within the church, or your abilities or your knowledge or your spiritual gifts, those things that make you feel good about yourself, those ways of helping you understand where you are at in this world, how you interpret things, they're only temporary and they are incomplete. You cannot know for certain. And you are building upon a shaky and unfinished foundations. But love is different. And these are verse 13. And now these three remain. So once we've got rid of all those other things that we can't rely on, these are the three things that remain. Our faith and our hope in Jesus Christ. He has died for our sins. He has been resurrected, and we will be with him once more. And love. God's love for us and our love for others. And out of those three, faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is love. So 3 very quick things to finish with. And next week, we're going to look a lot more at what this might look like. But 1, hold your convictions with humility. You do not have to loosen your faith or loosen your grip, but practice saying, I may be right, but I might not see the whole picture. Mature faith is not marked by certainty, but by teachability. Number 2, choose love over winning. Before speaking or posting on social media or reacting, ask, am I trying to be right or am I trying to love? Because being correct may feel powerful, but love is what builds people. We might win the argument, but lose the soul. And then lastly, number 3, let love shape your identity. You are not defined by your opinions, your tribe, or your certainty in what they believe. Your deepest security is not found in having the right answers, but in being loved and learning to love in return. And if you don't take anything else away from this morning, know this: God loves you. Here are 3 questions to reflect on. Where has being right mattered more to me than listening well? Where am I reacting in black and white instead of showing patience and kindness? If my understanding is only partial, what am I actually building my life upon?
A triangle of personalities, and I think probably we all swing into one corner or another of that triangle.
Yeah,
at
you've got
times.
more. You can see yourself more in one, can't you? I think.
Yes.
But then you do kind of
Yes,
go
and
across.
I think so I think when you're feeling, I think often when you go back into a corner, maybe you sort of go to one of the areas, your natural default, and I think also when you feel like we were talking about before we listened to Martin about sort of at times when you feel pretty certain I was right, and then what do you do when you realise you weren't?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're backed into a corner,
Then you
you
go
might
to
just
those.
stay with your original thought.
Yeah.
So there are some questions that we've just seen. I'm just going to get the paper version up in front of me because my eyesight won't see the screen behind the camera. They're quite hard to. I mean, we both looked at the question and thought, yeah, maybe we won't discuss one of those.
Yeah.
We will to help you.
Yes.
And go down a very big rabbit hole probably. So I think the last one I'd quite like to do, if you're up for that, Anna. If my understanding is only partial, what am I actually building my life on?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Christo. Look, it's on the screen for us all. So I think this is quite key. A bit about what we were talking about earlier, that actually your foundation, if you think you're so right about something, and your foundation is based on that, about something, and then something comes along that disproves it, or makes you feel, actually, maybe I wasn't 100% right about that. It can shake your very core depending on what it is, can't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So actually, it can really shake your foundations if that's about a certain belief system or a way you've been practicing. So in your work, you might do a certain thing a certain way because you believe it to be right. You 100% believe it to be right.
And you've done it that way for
years,
potentially.
potentially.
Time,
And then somebody comes along and goes, well, actually, best practice is, or, well, why are you doing it like that? Because this would be so much quicker, or
this is more effective. Do it this way.
And then you do realise that, but it shakes your whole oh my gosh, I've been doing it like this for years. Have I got what else? And I often go to. I'm probably the low self-esteem person. I often go to, well, what else have I got so wrong?
Yeah.
And then you feel really on shaky ground. And then you start
questioning everything you've done, don't you? And everything you do and everything you're thinking. You're like, oh.
Yeah. So then going back to this question about if my understanding is only partial, how does that actually mean that what do I do with that? So everything I took maybe even as granted as truth, you start to question, don't you? You could go into that space.
Yeah.
And I know people find themselves, that can lead to anxiety. It can lead to low mood, low self-esteem. We've just seen as one
you
part
kind of withdraw, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you question a lot. But I'd like to say there is a positive. I'm pretty sure there's a positive under all this.
Yes.
And Martin touched about the 3 remaining things. So if all else is not around, the 3 remaining things: faith, hope, and love. And I think as human beings, we can get all 3 of those things wrong, right, partial. We don't really know, do we, 100% what we're doing and how we do it and how we live out. And we try and do our best. And I think the most important thing of these is love.
Yeah.
Is that we all have at some point felt love or received a loving act from somebody or a loving gesture and so we have an idea of what love can be. And then in that, I mean, I look at that and think, do I love well? When you read all out those things that I love, and I'm like,
you think of it going, maybe I need to improve on that bit.
Yeah. And I so think there is a list there. You want to go back and revisit in Corinthians about what love is. But I think we've all had that feeling of like, oh, that was really nice when that person showed, when I was being, and I think we go back to our points earlier, when I was being stubbornly right, that person didn't say, I told you so, or shoot you down, but they just said, look, it's completely understandable. You thought it was right because and I love the fact that you were so passionate about it. But I'm here to support you as you learn to change or learn to do it this way because you've now realised your mistakes, rather than rubbing your nose in it. Yeah. And I think we've all had a moment from somebody or ourselves giving that out of that love that either comes naturally or you actually made an effort to be like that. Yeah. That we can start to think that felt nice and we can work like that.
And then you want to give that back to other people. Yeah. Don't you? If you've received it, you know how it felt. You then try and model that again. Yeah, it's just
So I think there was a lot in it today, but I think the main thing for me is that if I don't know things fully, if I've got a partial understanding, then actually trying to be the best person I can be for myself and for others, and that's then through love. I won't love everybody. We don't love everybody, do we? But we can show those acts of love that Jesus has role modelled before us. Then I think that's a good starting point.
Definitely.
To how to build your life with partial understanding.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I am not anywhere near that, by the way. Just putting you there. But that's where I strive to be. And I think that's the main thing, isn't it? We ask for help. For those of you who are Jesus followers, that's where we ask for help.
Where Jesus
and for those of you who aren't, that's where Anna and I would go for help. We would be asking Jesus for help in those situations that we find slightly more difficult, that we think we're right 100%. And actually, with our partial understanding, we need to show love and grace to others as we have been shown.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something to challenge us this week, isn't it?
Definitely.
Let's challenge ourselves at that one moment where you think there's a gut reaction to do I'm right thing.
Yeah,
or
you've got to step back. And
or I know this 100%. Is to just have a pause, put in a pause and go, okay, so even if I am, how do I might not know it fully and this person might have something to add to my knowledge. How do I show love in this situation?
Yeah, how do I let love lead that discussion?
Rather than my head.
Yeah. Rather than my, I know I'm right.
Yeah. And so it is, I think it's about putting our pauses in our lives, isn't it? To just reflect where we're standing in that moment and how that's going to impact maybe other people that we're dealing with in that time.
Definitely.
So that wasn't a challenge at all. Anna and I are going to struggle with that, so maybe you will as well.
I think all of the questions, obviously, you can hear Martin at the end, but they were all quite challenging to think about, I think.
So hopefully you found the talk useful. It's something to reflect on and think about. You can email in if you want. I've got questions at hawleybaptist.org.uk. That's got questions at hawleybaptist.org.uk. And it can be about today's talk. It can be about the talks of this series. It can be about if you've just got some questions that this has stirred in you that you just want to send in, please do not sit on them in solitary and send them in, and somebody
reach out.
will try and
will
help
get back
you.
To you.
Yeah. So it's been lovely you joining us this podcast, and we will no doubt our pairing will happen again, and we'll see you again. Thanks very much.
Have a good week.
Bye.
That is it for today's episode. Well done for joining us and making it here to the end. Hopefully you feel slightly encouraged at least, or that you want to follow Jesus just that little bit more closely. You can join us in the room on a Sunday, but if that's too big of a next step for you, did you know you can also join us online for a video feed to one of our morning services? Do get in contact with us if you'd like to find out how you can do that. If you've got any questions about what you've heard today, or about anything that's to do with following Jesus and just church lives, things that we might be able to help you with, we've got an email address just for you. It's gotquestions@hawleybaptist.org.uk. We'd love to hear from you there. Don't forget to share this. If you've enjoyed it, somebody else might do too. Share it with your friends. If you want to keep up to date with all that we do, hit that subscribe button to maintain that link with us and all that we produce. You can find it as well, links to these different things on hawleybaptist.org.uk/media as well. Thank you for joining us again. We pray God blesses you, and we will look forward to you joining us next time.